Today we're going to be going through my most anticipated books of the first couple of months of 2024. I like to group these by season typically, so these are my most anticipated winter releases of 2024, but winter technically starts at the end of 2023 and technically ends March 19th-ish. And really what I'm looking at here is just January, February, March releases, so it's kind of Q1, but I like to be seasonal. So they're kind of winter releases. Most of these are mystery, thriller, or horror books because those are my favorite genres, but there's a couple other stuff sprinkled in here as well, so let's get into it. First up is The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins. This book is coming out on January 9th, and I actually already have a physical ARC this book, and I'm actually almost done reading it at this point. And also, by the time you see this video, no, it probably won't be out yet. You're probably gonna see it before January 9th, but it'll be coming out very, very soon. This is a mystery slash thriller. It's called a thriller here. I would say it's more of a mystery based off of just reading it right now. There's like a thriller aspect to it, but it's like mostly a mystery. In it, you're following this couple, Jules and Camden. His name's Camden, but he goes by Cam. It's a little bit interchangeable in the story, which is a little weird. But essentially, Cam came from this rich family. He was adopted into it, and his adopted mother was Ruby McTavish Callahan Woodward Miller Kenmore. She married a lot. She has a lot of different last names. She dies, and so finally Cam takes Jules back to this big rich estate that he is from and brings her into his family, and he's the one who's going to be inheriting everything, and other people in the family are mad about that because he was adopted in and he left them, so everyone's mad about it, and there's some secrets that some people have coming into this, so it's a little bit of a drama. And then throughout the story you also get excerpts of letters that Ruby left behind that is telling her life story, and you're piecing together how that might come into play with anything. I'm liking it, so I would say if it sounds interesting to you, if you like Rachel Hawkins, I would recommend picking it up. Next is The Fury by Alex Michaelides. This one is coming out on January 16th, and I've actually already read this book as well. I got a physical copy of it and was able to read it. It is a story about this group of people who go off to this island together, and then someone gets murdered. Dun dun dun, who did it? Kind of your classic sort of isolated murder mystery type of story, but I did like the voice in this one a lot, the way it's told, like the main character, the way they're talking to you and the way the story gets laid out is twisty, turny, fun. Again, I'd recommend it. Next up is Only If You're Lucky by Stacey Willingham. This one's coming out on January 16th, and this one was a selection in Book of the Month. I don't remember if it was a main book or if it was an add-on, but if you have Book of the Month, you are able to get this one, which is what I did. So I do have it in the mail. I have not received it yet, but I am planning on reading it in January. This one is a thriller, and I actually don't really know much of what it is about, but I'm willing to give Stacey Willingham another chance. I didn't really love her book from last year, but the one before I did like, A Flicker in the Dark, so I've had one win, one miss. We'll see how this one does for me. We're following Lucy Sharp, who is larger than life, especially for Margot, who meets Lucy at the end of their freshman year at a liberal arts college in South Carolina. Margot is the shy one, the careful one, always the sidekick and never the center of attention, but when Lucy singles her out at the end of the year, a year Margot spent studying and playing it safe, and asks her to room together, something in Margot can't say no. So Margot finds herself living in an off-campus house with three other girls, Lucy, the ringleader, Sloane, the sarcastic one, and Nicole, the nice one. The three of them opposites but also deeply intertwined. It's a year that finds Margot finally coming out of the shell she's been in since the end of high school when her best friend Eliza died. Margot and Lucy have become close friends, and then one of the fraternity boys from the house next door has been brutally murdered, and Lucy Sharp is missing without a trace. To be honest, it doesn't sound wildly interesting to me, but I'm interested in trying Stacey Willingham again, so we'll see. Another author I'm giving another chance after not loving their last book is Kate Alice Marshall with No One Can Know, which I think also came from Book of the Month in December. This one's coming out on January 23rd, and it's a story about three sisters, two murders, and too many secrets to count. Emma hasn't told her husband much about her past. He knows her parents are dead, and she hasn't spoken to her sisters in years, and then they lose their apartment, her husband gets laid off, and Emma discovers that she's pregnant. That's when Emma confesses that she still has one more asset, her parents' house, which she owns jointly with her estranged sisters. They can't sell it, but they can live in it. But returning home means that Emma is forced to reveal her secrets to her husband, that the house is not a rundown farmhouse, but a stately mansion, and that her parents died right there, were murdered, and that some people say Emma did it. Hopefully I end up enjoying this one more than What Lies in the Woods. Next is a sequel, Everyone on This Train is a Suspect by Benjamin Stevenson. This was first published in October of 2023, evidently. I don't know where that would have been if it was published in a different country, but it comes out January 30th of 2024 in the United States. Nothing in the synopsis is going to spoil anything from the first book. It's essentially just another locked room fun murder mystery. We've got a large cast of characters, someone gets murdered, and how do you find a killer when all the suspects know how to get away with murder is the kind of hook of this one. I really enjoyed the first book, so I'm super excited for this one. Next is Rabbit Hole by Kate Brody. This is coming out January 2nd, and I believe this was one of the picks for the Aardvark book club for the month of January. This is a debut novel exploring the dark side of true crime fandom and the blurry lines of female friendship, perfect for fans of Gillian Flynn, My Favorite Murder, and Fleabag. Conspiracy theories from Reddit seduce a disaster-prone woman into an obsession with solving her older sister's cold case disappearance. Says it's a biting critique of the internet's voyeurism. Rabbit Hole is an outrageous and heart-wrenching character study of a mind twisted by grief and a page-turning mystery that's as addictive as a late-night Reddit binge. And I love falling down a Reddit rabbit hole. I love falling down any kind of internet rabbit hole, but there's just something special about a Reddit rabbit hole. So this sounds like it's going to be right up my alley. Next is The Night of the Storm by Nishida Parekh, which is coming out January 16th. And I do have an advanced copy of this one digitally, so I'm hoping to get to this one very soon. This is a fresh take on the classic locked room thriller about a multi-generational Indian American family marooned in a house with a murderer during Hurricane Harvey. Hurricane Harvey is about to hit Houston. Meanwhile, single mom Gia Shaw is already having a rough week. Her 12-year-old son Ishan has been suspended from school for getting in a fight. Still reeling from the fallout of her divorce, their move to Houston, her family's disapproval, the struggle to make ends meet on her own. Now Gia is worried about Ishan's future too. Will her solo parenting be enough? Doesn't a boy need a father? And now their apartment complex is under a mandatory evacuation order. Gia's sister Seema has invited them to hunker down in her fancy house in Sugarland, and despite Gia's misgivings, Seema's husband Vipul has been just a little too friendly with her lately. Gia concedes it's probably the best place to keep Ishan safe during the hurricane. With Gia's philandering ex scrutinizing her every move, all too eager to snatch back custody of Ishan, she can't afford to make a mistake. When Vipul's brother and his wife show up on Seema's doorstep too, it's a recipe for disaster. Grandma, the family matriarch, has never been shy about playing favorites among her sons and their wives. As the storm escalates, tensions rise quickly, and soon someone's dead. Was it a horrible accident, or is there a murderer in their midst? With no help available until the floodwaters recede in the morning, Gia must protect her son and identify the culprit before she goes down for a crime she didn't commit or becomes the next victim. I love a classic locked room mystery, so I'm very excited for this. Next up is The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels by Janice Hallett, which was originally published in September of 2023, but is being published in the US on January 23rd of 2024. I have not read from Janice Hallett before, but I have had my eye on her books, especially The Appeal. I think that might have become a sequel or something. I don't know. I had an eye on her books, and then other books kept coming out, and then I got overwhelmed, and then I saw a new book coming out, and I was like, maybe this will be a good place to start. Just something a little different. Start somewhere fresh. This is a mystery, and it says, everyone knows the story of the Alperton Angels, the cult that brainwashed a teenage girl into believing her baby was the Antichrist. When the girl came to her senses and called the police, the Angels committed suicide and mother and baby disappeared. Now, true crime author Amanda Bailey is looking to revive her career by writing a book on the case. The Alperton baby has turned 18. Finding them will be the true crime scoop of the year, but rival author Oliver Menzies is just as smart, better connected, and also on the baby's trail. As Amanda and Oliver are forced to collaborate, they realize that the truth about the Angels is much darker and stranger than they'd ever imagined, and in pursuit of the story, they risk becoming part of it. That sounds darker than I thought that it would, and I'm very intrigued. Next up is First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston, which I originally saw on Book of the Month. It was one of the January selections, and I was not super interested in it, but then I started seeing rave reviews of it. I've been seeing such good reviews, so now I'm getting FOMO, and now I want to read it. It's coming out on January 2nd, so I guess it's already out. And this one says, Evie Porter has everything a nice Southern girl could want. A perfect doting boyfriend, a house with a white picket fence and a garden, a fancy group of friends. The only catch, Evie Porter doesn't exist. The identity comes to Evie Porter. Once she's given a name and location by her mysterious boss, Mr. Smith, she learns everything there is to know about the town and the people in it. Then the target, Ryan Sumner. The last piece of the puzzle is the job. Evie isn't privy to Mr. Smith's real identity, but she knows this job will be different. Ryan has gotten under her skin, and she's starting to envision a different sort of life for herself. But Evie can't make any mistakes, especially after what happened last time, because the one thing she's worked her entire life to keep clean, the one identity she could always go back to, her real identity, just walked right into this town. Evie Porter must stay one step ahead of her past while making sure there's still a future in front of her. The stakes couldn't be higher, but then Evie has always liked a challenge. I also didn't realize this was a Reese Witherspoon book club pick, so I do feel like this is going to end up being pretty popular throughout the year, so might as well go ahead and pick it up. Here's one of my non-mystery thriller picks that I'm excited about. It's Interesting Facts About Space by Emily R. Austin, which was also a Book of the Month Club January selection, which I did choose, so it is in the mail for me. I'm excited about it. This one's coming out January 30th, and this is a queer fiction book. It comes from the same author of Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead, which I have not read, but I saw the description for this book and I saw Emily Austin all over TikTok talking about this book for the past couple of months, and it's just gotten me excited about it. A fast-paced, hilarious, and ultimately hopeful novel for anyone who is ever worried they might be a terrible person. Enid is obsessed with space. She can tell you about black holes and their ability to spaghettify you without batting an eye in fear. Her one major phobia? Bald men. But she tries to keep that one under wraps. When she's not listening to her favorite true crime podcast on a loop, she's serially dating a rotation of women from dating apps. At the same time, she's trying to forge a new relationship with her estranged half-sisters after the death of her absent father. When she unwittingly plunges into her first serious romantic entanglement, Enid starts to believe that someone is following her. As her paranoia spirals out of control, Enid must contend with her mounting suspicion that something is seriously wrong with her, because at the end of the day, there's only one person she can't outrun: herself. Brimming with quirky humor, charm, and heart, Interesting Facts About Space effortlessly shows us the power of revealing our secret shames, the most beautifully human parts of us all. Next up, coming out on January 30th, is The House of Last Resort by Christopher Golden, which I also have a physical copy of that the publisher sent to me, so I'll definitely be reading this one, hopefully early. This is a high-concept horror novel, and I have tried Christopher Golden before, but I did DNF the last book I tried from him. I think I've only tried All Hallows. I may have read a short story from him before, but not that I can remember. So we'll see how this one goes. It says, across Italy, there are many half-empty towns nearly abandoned by those who migrate to the coast or to cities. The beautiful crumbling hilltop town of Bacina, I don't know, is among them, but its mayor has taken drastic measures to rebuild, selling abandoned homes to anyone in the world for €1 as long as the buyer promises to live there for at least 5 years. It's a no-brainer for American couple Tommy and Kate. Both work remotely, and this area is the home of Tommy's grandparents, his closest living relatives. It feels like a romantic adventure, an opportunity the young couple would be crazy not to seize, but from the moment they move in, they both feel a shadow has fallen on them. Tommy's grandmother is furious, even a little frightened, when she realizes which house they've bought. There are rooms in an annex at the back of the house that they didn't know were there. The place makes strange noises at night. Locked rooms are suddenly open, and when they go to a family gathering, there's certain people are whispering about them and about their house, which one neighbor refers to as the House of Last Resort. Soon they learn that the home was owned for generations by the church, but the real secret and the true dread is unlocked when they finally learn what the priests were doing in this house for all those long years, and how many people died in this strange chapel inside. While down in the catacombs beneath Bacina, I'm gonna have to figure out how to say that, something stirs. Next is another kind of interesting one for me. This is a fantasy book, but it's marked as a fantasy mystery, and it just really intrigued me by the synopsis. It's called The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. It's going to be the first in a series called Shadow of the Leviathan. So many words I don't know how to say. And this one's coming out February 6th. It's also over 400 pages, but it sounds interesting. In D'Artagna's most opulent mansion, a high imperial officer lies dead, killed to all appearances when a tree spontaneously erupted from his body. Even in this canton at the borders of the empire, where contagions abound and the blood of the Leviathans works strange magical changes, it's a death at once terrifying and impossible. Called in to investigate this mystery is Anna Dolabra, an investigator whose reputation for brilliance is matched only by her eccentricities. Goodness gracious. At her side is her new assistant, Dinios Cole. Din is an engraver magically altered to possess a perfect memory. His job is to observe and report and act as his superior's eyes and ears, quite literally in this case, as among Anna's quirks are her insistence on wearing a blindfold at all times and her refusal to step outside the walls of her home. Din is most perplexed by Anna's ravenous appetite for information and her mind's frenzied leaps, not to mention her cheerful disregard for propriety and the apparent joy she takes in scandalizing her young counterpart. Yet, as the case unfolds and Anna makes one startling deduction after the next, he finds it hard to deny that she is indeed the Empire's greatest detective. As the two close in on a mastermind and uncover a scheme that threatens the safety of the Empire itself, Din realizes he's barely begun to assemble the puzzle that is Anna de Labra and wonders how long he'll be able to keep his own secrets safe from her piercing intellect. Featuring an unforgettable Holmes and Watson style pairing, a gloriously labyrinthine plot, and a haunting and wholly original fantasy world, The Tainted Cup brilliantly reinvents the classic mystery tale. Next is The Book of Love by Kelly Link. This comes out February 8th. This is another fantasy book, but it's marked as fantasy, mystery, sci-fi, kind of a mix of things. Late one night, Laura, Daniel, and Mo find themselves beneath the fluorescent lights of a high school classroom. Almost a year after disappearing from their hometown, the small seaside community of Lovesend, Massachusetts, having long been presumed dead. Which, in fact, they are. With them in the room is their previously unremarkable high school musical teacher who seems to know something about their disappearance and what has brought them back again. Desperate to reclaim their lives, the three agree to the terms of the bargain their music teacher proposes. They will be given a series of magical tasks. While they undertake them, they must return to their families and friends, but they can tell no one where they've been. In the end, there will be winners and there will be losers. But their resurrection has attracted the notice of other supernatural figures, all with their own agendas. As Laura, Daniel, and Mo grapple with the pieces of the lives they left behind, and Laura's sister Susanna attempts to reconcile what she remembers with what she fears, these mysterious others begin to arrive, engulfing their community in danger and chaos, and it becomes imperative that the teens solve the mystery of their deaths to avert a looming disaster. Next up is The Guest by B.A. Paris, which is coming out February 20th, and this is another one that I have a physical copy of from the publisher, so I'll definitely be reading it. And I always have a good time with B.A. Paris's novels, so I'm looking forward to another one from her. Iris and Gabriel seem to have it all: a beautiful home in the British countryside, a daughter happily working in Greece, and good friends Laure and Pierre from Paris, who they often vacation with. But when a young man has a tragic accident in a nearby quarry, Gabriel is the one to find him and hear his final words, leaving Gabriel with a guilty burden. As Iris tries to help ease her husband's trauma, they acquire an unexpected house guest. Laure has seemingly moved in after her husband's revelation that he has had a child with another woman. Iris and Gabriel insist Laure, also, am I saying this right? Lori? I don't know. They insist that she stay as long as she needs, but she keeps wearing Iris's clothes, following her every move and asking her about the recent death of the young man. Their only respite from the increasingly tense atmosphere in their own home comes from a couple new to town and expecting their first child. But with them comes their gardener, who has a checkered past. With fractured relationships and secrets piling up around them, can Iris and Gabriel's marriage survive? Next is The Antique Hunter's Guide to Murder by C.L. Miller, which comes out February 6th. This is supposed to be a cozier mystery. It is a debut novel about a former antique hunter investigating a suspicious death at an isolated English manor, embroiling her back in the dangerous world of tracking stolen artifacts. What antique would you kill for? Freya Lockwood is shocked when she learns that Arthur Crockleford, antiques dealer and her estranged mentor, has died under mysterious circumstances. She has spent the last 20 years avoiding her quaint English hometown, but when she receives a letter from Arthur asking her to investigate, sent just days before his death, Freya has no choice but to return to a life she had sworn to leave behind. Joining forces with her eccentric Aunt Carol, Freya follows clues and her instincts to an old manor house for an advertised antiques enthusiast weekend. But not all is as it seems. It's clear to Freya that the antiques are all just poor reproductions and her fellow guests are secretive and menacing. What is going on at this estate, and how was Arthur involved? More importantly, can Freya and Carol discover the truth before the killer strikes again? Next up is Island Witch by Amanda Giatissa, which is coming out on February 20th, and I do have a digital copy of this one, so I'm hoping to get to this one early. I haven't read from Amanda Giatissa yet, but I've heard good things, so I'm excited to explore this story. It says, being the daughter of the village Kapua? Why is this video filled with the most difficult words to pronounce? But anyway, it means a demon priest, and Amara is the daughter of that demon priest. Amara is used to keeping mostly to herself. Influenced by the new religious practices brought in by the British colonizers, the villagers who once respected her father's craft have turned on the family. Yet they all still seem to call on him whenever supernatural disturbances arise. Now someone or something is viciously seizing upon men in the jungle. But instead of enlisting Amara's father's help, the villages have accused him of carrying out the attacks himself. As she tries to clear her father's name, Amara finds herself haunted by dreams that eerily predict the dark forces on her island, and she can't shake the feeling that it's all connected to the night she was recovering from a strange illness and woke up scared and confused to hear her mother's frantic, "No one can find out what happened." Lush, otherworldly, and recalling horror classics like Carrie and The Exorcist, Island Witch is a deliciously creepy and darkly feminist tale about the horrors of moral panic, the violent space between girlhood and adulthood, and what happens when female rage is finally unleashed. Next up is Among the Living by Tim Levin, which is coming out February 13th, and this is another one that I have a digital copy of from NetGalley. I did go on a little bit of a NetGalley requesting spree at the beginning of the year, and I ended up with a lot of things that I'm excited about, so that is good. This is a horror book, and I have not read a novel from Tim Levin, but I did read a short story of his in an anthology that I read last year, and I really enjoyed it, so I did put him on my radar that I did want to pick up something from him in the future, and this one sounded really interesting to me. This is a terrifying horror novel set in a melting Arctic landscape. Something deadly has lain dormant for thousands of years, but now the permafrost is giving up its secrets. Estranged friends Dean and Bethan meet after 5 years apart when they are drawn to a network of caves on a remote Arctic island. Bethan and her friends are environmental activists determined to protect the land, but Dean's group's exploitation of rare earth minerals deep in the caves unleashes a horrific contagion that has rested frozen and undisturbed for many millennia. Fleeing the terrors emerging from the caves, Dean and Bethan and their rival teams undertake a perilous journey on foot across an unpredictable and volatile landscape. The ex-friends must learn to work together again if they're to survive, and most importantly, stop the horror from spreading to the wider world. So this sounds like it's also a little bit of a survival story, which I typically enjoy, and it also seems a little shorter. It's only 283 pages, so I'm looking forward to it. Next up is Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Kavanaugh, which comes out on March 19th of 2024. It was originally published in July of 2023, probably in a different country. Comes out in March in the US, and I think I also have a digital copy of this one. It says it's for fans of The Silent Patient and Gone Girl, and essentially it is another Strangers on a Train retelling. So it says, one dark evening on New York City's Upper West Side, two strangers meet by chance. Over drinks, Amanda and Wendy realize they have much in common, especially loneliness and an intense desire for revenge against the men who destroyed their families. As they talk into the night, they come up with the perfect plan: if you kill for me, I'll kill for you. In another part of the city, Ruth is home alone when the beautiful brownstone she shares with her husband Scott is invaded. She's attacked by a man with piercing blue eyes who disappears into the night. Will she ever be able to feel safe again while the blue-eyed stranger is still out there? Intricate, heart-racing, and from an author who is the real deal, according to Lee Child. Kill for Me, Kill for You will keep you breathless until the final page. Next is How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin, which comes out on March 26th of 2024, and this is a mystery story that is for fans of Knives Out and the Thursday Murder Club. It is an enormously fun mystery about a woman who spends her entire life trying to prevent her foretold murder, only to be proven right 60 years later when she is found dead in her sprawling country estate. Now it's up to her great niece to catch the killer. It's 1965, and teenage Frances Adams is at an English country fair with her two best friends. But Frances's night takes a hairpin turn when a fortune teller makes a bone-chilling prediction. One day, Frances will be murdered. Frances spends a lifetime trying to solve a crime that hasn't happened, compiling dirt on every person who crosses her path in an effort to prevent her own demise. For decades, no one takes her seriously until nearly 60 years later when she is found murdered like she always said she would be. In the present day, Annie Adams has been summoned to a meeting at the sprawling country estate of her wealthy and reclusive great-aunt Frances. But by the time Annie arrives in the quaint English village of Castle Knoll, Frances is already dead. Annie is determined to catch the killer, but thanks to Frances's lifelong habit of digging up secrets and lies, it seems every endearing and eccentric villager might just have a motive for her murder. Can Annie safely unravel the dark mystery at the heart of Castle Knoll, or will dredging up the past throw her into the path of the killer? It's also marked as cozy mystery, and it does sound a little cozier, so I'm excited for that. I'm really looking forward to some more cozier mysteries in 2024. Next is Diavola by Jennifer Marie Thorne, which is coming out March 26th of 2024, and this is a gothic horror story. Anna has only two rules for the annual Pace family destination vacations: tread lightly and survive. It isn't easy when she's the only one in the family who doesn't quite seem to fit. Her twin brother Benny goes with the flow so much he's practically dissolved, and her older sister Nicole is so used to everyone, including her blandly docile husband and two kids, falling in line, that Anna often ends up in trouble for simply asking a question. Mom seizes every opportunity to question her life choices, and Dad, when not reminding everyone who has paid for this vacation, just wants want some peace and quiet. The gorgeous remote villa in tiny Monteperso seems like a perfect place to endure so much family togetherness, including Benny's demanding new boyfriend. It's Christopher, not Chris. That is, until things start going off the rails. The strange noises at night, the unsettling warnings from the local villagers, and oh, the dark, violent past of the villa itself. Jennifer Thorne skewers all too familiar family dynamics in this sly, wickedly funny vacation gothic. Beautifully unhinged and deeply satisfying, Diavola is a sharp twist on the classic haunted house story, exploring loneliness, belonging, and seemingly inescapable bonds of family mythology. Warning, may invoke feelings of irritation, dread, and despair that come with large family gatherings. This just sounds like it's gonna be fun. Like, even the synopsis is like poking a little bit of fun at itself and just family dynamics in general, and the cover is super cool, so I'm excited for it. Another great cover is Thirst by Marina Yuzuzuk. This is a translated work. It originally came out in 2020. Heather Cleary translated it, and it's coming out March 5th in the US. This is a queer horror vampire book. It says across 2 different time periods, 2 women confront fear, loneliness, mortality, and a haunting yearning that will not let them rest. A breakout genre-blurring novel from one of the most exciting new voices of Latin America's feminist gothic. It is the twilight of Europe's bloody bacchanals of murder and feasting without end. In the 19th century, a vampire arrives from Europe to the coast of Buenos Aires, and for the second time in her life, watches as villages transform into a cosmopolitan city, one that will soon be ravaged by yellow fever. She must adapt, intermingle with humans, and be discreet. In present-day Buenos Aires, a woman finds herself at an impasse as she grapples with her mother's terminal illness and her own relationship with motherhood. When she first encounters the vampire in a cemetery, something ignites within the 2 women, and they cross a threshold from which there is no turning back. With echoes of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and written in the vein of feminist gothic writers like Shirley Jackson, Daphne du Maurier, and Carmen Maria Machado, Thirst plays with the boundaries of genre while exploring the limits of female agency, the consuming power of desire, and the fragile vitality of even the most immortal of creatures. And then finally on my list is The Mystery Writer by Sulari Gentile, which is coming out March 19th. I have tried this author before. I did not necessarily love the first book I read from them, but I do want to give them another try. It says, there's nothing easier to dismiss than a conspiracy theory until it turns out to be true. When Theodosia Benton abandons her career path as an attorney and shows up on her brother's doorstep with 2 suitcases and an unfinished novel, she expects to face a few challenges. Will her brother support her ambition or send her back to finish her degree? What will her parents say when they learn of her decision? Does she even have what it takes to be a successful writer? What Theo never expects is to be drawn into a hidden literary world in which identity is something that can be lost and remade for the sake of an audience. When her mentor, a highly successful author, is brutally murdered, Theo wants the killer to be found and justice to be served. Then the police begin looking at her brother Gus as their prime suspect, and Theo does the unthinkable in order to protect him. But the writer has left a trail, a thread out of the labyrinth in the form of a story. Gus finds that thread and follows it, and in his attempt to save his sister, he inadvertently threatens the foundations of the labyrinth itself. To protect the carefully constructed narrative, Theo Benton and everyone looking for her will have to die. This sounds kind of confusing, and that was kind of my issue with the first book I read from this author, is it was just kind of confusing and super meta. I don't really know what to expect with this, but I did just want to try them again, try another book, so we'll see. Fingers crossed that it ends up being good. So that is it for all of my most anticipated books for the first 3 months of the year. Let me know if there's anything on this list that you are also excited about picking up, or let me know if there's anything I mentioned that I have an early copy of that you'd really like to see featured in a vlog. I can definitely make that happen. And if there's anything I didn't hit on that is coming out in the first couple of months that you think I'd be interested in, definitely let me know down in the comments below so I can get that on my radar as well. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!